wind blows for those who ever worked in a newsroom. The wind blows for those who work in a newsroom now.
I think that Detroit is an opportunity to reimagine what a city can be. I think it's a way to look at the resources, to look at the structures that we created, that so much of came out of Detroit in terms of, the car and how it led to the interstates and the suburbs and the Walmarts. And I feel like Detroit almost shifted this paradigm towards what so much of America is living in. And I think in seeing how it's failed us, and it failed us here in Detroit, I think it's interesting to say, we're starting over in light of what we've learned. We are doing things locally. We are getting to know our neighbors. We're investing in our communities to do things that are sort of from the ground up, that we don't have to outsource everything, that we can make it on our own.
And a lot of the power and what we need to be able to grow our communities and sustain our communities are slow stories. And so we need to change our news production processes. We need to change how we do what we do as news. That news can actually feed a community. We're not just giving information and sending it out one way and there's no communication. There needs to be a listening, and there needs to be the ability to shift the power for news production to the people in a way that gives them the authority to tell their own story.
Why do you think it's so important for a community to tell its own story?
Because it's their story. They live it. They know it. It gives the authenticity that sometimes is often lacking when someone else comes in and try to tell the story.
Time has acknowledged that they came to Detroit, spent $99,000 on a house in the West Village area of Detroit to house journalists for the purposes of taking on assignment Detroit. Their purpose was to reframe the image of Detroit for the national press.
And the idea being, if we can give a more well-rounded portrayal of Detroit than had been here, could we give the nation a more true picture? Having someone live here, breathe the air, talk to people every day, not just in an office setting, which is more typical, a bureau, let's say, but have someone live here and have to find a coffee house to frequent, to get to know his neighbors, to be out in the city and visible and a face of the magazine, that he would hear more, see more, write more.
This is where the Time Warner House is somewhere. Okay, this is the only address that seems to register as the 714 that even seems to resemble anything that they've said. But, you're seeing there's nothing here. So maybe we'll drive down to the next block of Parker and see if we see anything that resembles it. All I know is it's on Parker Street. I went looking for the house and I have yet to find it.
And then the major media, even though some of them, say they live here, they don't live here. Their mind isn't, with the mass of people that ordinary neighborhoods. They don't know what life is like in ordinary neighborhoods.
As much as I appreciate what the magazines are trying to accomplish, the high level of the New York editors trying to determine what's happening in Detroit has not always produced the best coverage, and that's just my opinion. I think that they have the best of intentions, but in one person asking me to touch on some of the things that have drawn the most criticism and the most heat, as it were, in this project, when we opened the project with an essay that focused solely on the negative and had an image on the front cover of Time magazine that was so destructive and so impossibly negative, that kind of set a bad tone for the rest of what we would do.
It's time that something happened to change the face of media in Detroit, and the notion of community-centric media is so important. So the time is now. We are going to appropriate Assignment Detroit and turn it into a multi-platform vehicle and really provide forums for people for the citizens of the city to tell their own stories as well as to address ways of finding solutions to major problems within the city. We're asking Time Magazine to give to the community of Detroit the brand franchise of Assignment Detroit and the Detroit House, to a nonprofit organization to be developed out of this group and other interested collaborators for the purpose of developing a multi-platform collaboration that will tell the stories of Detroit, revisioning Detroit, re-envisioning Detroit through the stories of and the voices of Detroit citizens.
When the auto industry virtually imploded last year, middle-class families and especially middle-class African Americans were hit hard. Tom Douglas was one of the casualties.
Everything has changed. The good old days are gone. They're gone.
Journalists are in the job to do what they do, which is storytell. But when you're telling the story about a community, the best story could be told from the community itself.
So with 29 dot votes, reinventing Assignment Detroit.
It is not about maintaining a profession. It's not about maintaining an industry. It's not about dollars and jobs for a certain segment leaking out of an industry. Our role and our calling is to tell people's stories and to help them tell their own stories. And when we've lost that ideal, we've lost the heart of what journalism has always been.